Welcome everyone to the latest edition and episode of IT and Security News, here only live on this channel. Welcome everyone. Those who are new to this channel, here is where we usually read out all the latest and greatest IT news. Well, actually usually not the greatest, but anyway. So what happened these days? Let me just check here. Yeah. So Russian internet law, a new level of censorship. Authorities in Russia now have the power to disconnect users from the global internet in line with controversial new law. A reporter with the Borders has slammed the move as a dangerous step. And I find this, of course, it's totally hilarious in my opinion, because you always find some way out, even in China. And the only thing is that we, of course, obviously need to be careful that stuff happening in China and Russia also becomes more normal in the West, unfortunately. So in this regards, yeah, a little bit of warning also for all of us. Also VPN and stuff and secure shell and all the other fun stuff torn between. But again, of course, with a more state-controlled internet, either in Russia, China, North Korea or UK, porn filter, right, USA, net neutrality and all the other fun stuff, even in the EU, nothing is safe. So recurring shout out that we all, not only in Russia and China, but well, actually if the Chinese people are interested, but anyway, we all of us need to be careful everywhere not to have all our freedom limited in such a way. Speaking about this, Spain and GitHub are blocking an app that helped protesters organize, so you don't even need to look until Hong Kong there and Apple. It only takes Spain and GitHub, so just next door there in Silicon Valley or wherever. GitHub is sitting in Spain, here in the EU, and thousands of people protest in Barcelona. An app meant to organize activists was blocked by GitHub on request of the government. And the greatest scandal of all of this is certainly Spain being Spain. They can do sort of whatever they want to do there in national law. Well, unfortunately anyway, but whatever I believe in the comments what you think about this. But the really sad thing is, of course, GitHub participating in this, but this is of course local law and having to comply with local law. Maybe there's not even so much for GitHub to do. I only wonder if they block this only in Spain. And let's maybe double check here. Yeah, also nowadays GitHub owned by Microsoft, right? The Spanish government on par with censorship heavy places like China and Russia, just what I said, right? You don't even need to look until Russia if the censorship is next door in UK, Spain, USA, Germany, you name it. Requested that GitHub, of all places, block access to one of those apps by revoking local access to the GitHub repository. So it sounds local, so maybe still reachable from, yeah, so VPN, you name it. But requested local access, which is owned by Microsoft, complied with the order, which is of course, yeah, you can only blame them so far when that is the local law. And so what should they do there? Certainly not much if they have some court orders, and even in the USA this would happen. So yeah, anyway. And just what we have seen in previous stuff coming from North Korea and China was implemented by your local governments in the West soon, because they like it so much. Great friends of dictators or so. US president, I heard. Anyway, new unremovable xHelper malware has infected 45,000 Android devices. Too much to use Linux and Android. That's top-notch secure in 2019. Neither are mobile antivirus. Factory resets aren't helping. Neither are mobile antivirus solutions here. Antivirus snake oil #1 recurring shout out here. If you were wondering, also, yeah, outdated just what we had in the other main channel, right? If you were just a little bit disassembly of this on the other channel. Not only access points, Android devices, Linux, macOS, Windows, insecure, you name it. Maybe it's time to redesign and re-engineer our IT infrastructure with more maintainable, separated address space, separated, and yeah. Anyway, Over the past 6 months, a new Android malware strain has made a name, I don't know they call it already strain, anyway, has made a name for itself after popping up on the radar of several antivirus companies and annoying users thanks to self-reinstall mechanism that has made it near impossible to remove, named xHelper. This malware was first spotted back in March but slowly expanded. Installed via third-party apps. According to this, the source, this infects its web redirects that send users to web pages hosting Android apps. These sites instruct users on how to sideload unofficial Android apps from outside the Play Store. But again, not that you think, also recurring theme here, App Stores not safe. People, developers could have malware on their Macs and PCs, and there were already cases of those at the factory, at the developers, malware sneaking into builds and stuff, and other similar, or just websites, right? There were even jailbreak with Wi-Fi drive-by there on Safari vulnerability stuff. So yeah. In other top news, top Linux developer on Intel chip security problems, they are not going away. Greg Kroah-Hartman, the stable Linux kernel maintainer, says we are going to see Intel chip security problems for years to come. Yeah, that will be fun, but not that we are surprised. And also Intel not even moving the fastest, but maybe AMD not even so much better. So he said there on the latest Open Source Summit in Europe keynote speech, Fallout, Zombie Load, Linux, all what we have called out in our weekly IT insecurity news here. They have nothing to offer but blood, sweat and tears for dealing with Intel security problems, or as a Chinese developer told him recently about the problem, this is sad talk. The sadness is that the same Intel CPU speculative execution problems which led to meltdown and Spectre security issues are alive and well and causing more trouble. The problem with how Intel designs speculative execution is that while anticipating the next action of the CPU does indeed speed things up, it also exposes data along the way. That's bad enough for your own server, but when it breaks down barriers between virtual machines in cloud computing, it's a security nightmare. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. At least 13 managed service providers were used to push ransomware this year. Once hackers compromise an MSP's network, they use it as remote access tool to deploy ransomware to hundreds of companies and thousands of computers. So just when you were thinking also in cloud infrastructures and hosted computing, so you even need to be careful. So not only is not cloud computing, not only with Intel speculative execution and other regular security vulnerabilities, not the most safe or recommended, in my opinion. Anyway, you're probably dealing one set of problems for another set of problems, but even if you have stuff on root servers, they could also theoretically be compromised with remote management stuff, like we have seen in the previous news with VPN, NordVPN, or what this was, security certificates stolen with remote management stuff in place. So yeah, for those unfamiliar with the managed services providers, is a company that manages customers' IT infrastructure using remote administrative tools. MSPs have been around since the 90s and the dawn of large computer fleets. However, they have been catching on with more and more companies in the recent years. And using MSPs typically involves installing MSP software that provides its stuff with remote access to computers' resources. However, its very same software can also be a curse. Starting this year, ransomware gangs has been realized that this could compromise the network of an MSP and then use their remote access tools to deploy ransomware. So yeah, just that you get a quick summary of that sort. Speaking about Uber allegedly paid 100,000 ransom and had hackers sign NDA after massive data breach just out yesterday. Here on this news site, allegedly new details about how Uber responded to a massive hacked attack in 2016 raised the question about the way it handled sensitive customer information. Instead of reporting the hackers to the police, the company allegedly paid $100,000 in exchange for the promise to delete 57 million user files. And yeah, cloud computing, new disruptive services, and why we do this IT show, to a recurring theme of we need to do stuff better, more secure, not only on the CPU side, but also on the deployment side and cloud side, and maybe We should also rethink cloud infrastructure for not having another level of external unsupervised stuff of where things can disappear. Speaking about disappear, as a little reminder here, as it was in the news, I thought it might be interesting to, why is this so? Anyway, this is even halfway decent on the, 25 years ago, one of the, even then, so our Intel security vulnerabilities even on a 386 there was a POP 80 or something, POP something bug, but also 25 years ago, one of the most prominent and maybe costly bugs, because back in the day Intel had to swap even CPUs, not like this new rubbish where they just say a microcode and here they'll fix it in software, whatever, it's good enough. But no, 25 years ago, FDIV, that was of course the famous floating point bug that it was not dividing correctly, and the bug was just some tables, so just some acceleration tables of looking up some floating point numbers there for the divider. And yeah, also Intel at that time not dealing with it nicely, as far as I remember. Some researcher reported this and was not even done much and whatever. So yeah, only when it, as far as I remember, only when it went more through the press and Intel eventually took this bug seriously. So this was Pentium 60, 65, P5, so with, as well as 90 and 100, P54, 54C. The SS spec code S6879. They corrected those lithography masks, and with stepping SX957, this was corrected. And yeah, also of course AMD later, just some decade ago, there was some TLB-Bug and translation local-site buffer bug and stuff. Speaking about which, AMD apparently here on Ars Technica, how a month-old AMD microcode bug destroyed their weekend. Actually, this is updated. I've not yet read the update, so much to our own collecting some news and then reading it loud here live and then getting the update. So someone here, author or something of contributor Jim Salter here at Ars Technica, had this weekend an exciting deployment of his first Ryzen 3000. We are still waiting for the 39. It's a little bit, yeah, we're waiting for the latest and greatest SKU, and then we are not getting this. So hopefully we also still get a 3950X. And so apparently, so we thought, also we made a video dedicated about this issue, the random issue, also stalling and not booting, causing systemd not to boot and hang and crash and burn. And this is, as we have seen in my own news shout out here previously on all these news and channels, just returning -1 all the time, like all bits set, not very, obviously not very random. And we thought it's fixed, right? Even we did not have this silicon, but hope to get it soon. So I've not seen it in person, unfortunately. Also didn't have, actually this bug also affected some bulldozer or whatever. Apparently there you see why I want to build this channel, also shouting this out. Everything of this kind needs to be more aware. People need to know this. Even in my opinion, normal non-tech people, it's really not too hard to understand random numbers and that it's not random, and that CPUs have such kind of functions and bugs. And it turns out apparently that this might not have been fixed. So according to this article, again, I don't have the SKU, this was not fixed, so at least not in all BIOSes or all AGESas or whatever the case might be there. Here's now some update, let's see. So they reached out to AMD, inquired about make and model of the motherboard. ASRock's REC representative reached out, intern to ASRock team offered a custom BIOS. Appropriate microcode fix is respectfully declined to flash in one-off BIOS for me and me only, but the better news is, well, I actually, this is a little bit strange. Why did he decline? I would actually, so AMD, ASUS, if you want to donate here some stuff, send some review samples our way. Highly appreciated, especially the 3950X. But I would for sure have tested this. Don't quite understand why he declines this. Although one thing I understand, one of BIOS is of course we need this fix for everyone. In my opinion, but even this I shouted out some weeks ago with the bulldozer where whatever family 15 hacks or whatever, where AMD gave up fixing this and is not supplying an updated firmware for this old silicon from a decade ago. That is really not cool. It's also not cool that this bug for the bulldozer, whatever that was known for at least 5 years or so now, and it was never fixed for the bulldozer. And I understand like one of BIOS, it's not a solution, but I would certainly have tested this. And if this breaks my boards, then I would, as a reporter, say, hey, hello, this bricked this, give me a new one. But it's a little bit strange not to test this, but I would have tested this and said, okay, this fixed or fixed, did not fix it, yet still give it enough press shout out to have this BIOS version out for all the customers on the website. So this is a little bit strange, but whatever. I read this here first time, don't know what's going on with people. Should be, but the better news is that ASRock told AMD that the BIOS update should be public available in mid-November. It's worth noting that some manufacturers do already have BIOS updates available, which do include the Microsoft fixes. Why the ASRock wasn't one of them is anybody's guess. Readers comment I've suggested workarounds and mitigations. In the meantime, the first was not run as an argument. No run, which no run. It's like but whatever. It's certainly not a fix. That isn't a fix. It tells the kernel not to use it. Yeah, certainly it's garbage. Workaround actually disables, neither actually fixes the issue. And any code checks what doesn't still exposes what something neither actually fixes the issue. Rees also suggested that if the AMD 60 microcode program were installed, it would fix the issue. This too is not the case. The microprotectors are both installed by default, including the one experienced a random fail. I contacted AMD and asked representative to check the status of that package and see if anything needs or can be done to updating it. Yeah, that would actually be interesting to see. That would probably, if this random stuff could be updated on boot. But this is also the reason I said this in the original. We actually had big videos there on this other main channel, even a dedicated video a month or 2 or 3 months ago. When I said it also needs to be disclosed in full in a true errata, that how does it happen? Is it in the CPU or is it actually BIOS? Because the question is, maybe the microcode does not even fix this. If this is maybe not microcode, but only BIOS initialization, like the BIOS on power on self-test and CPU initialization, calling something maybe with some random seed of the day of seconds time, whatever, I don't know. But again, this is not only security related, but all the stuff, in my opinion, we need to get from security by obscurity and like really documenting and calling all those details out. We cannot pretend to be a 21st century tech nation and everyone needs to code and stuff, and then nobody can code like really anymore. Everyone only does some JavaScript or HTML with some frameworks. And on the low level, we don't even know anymore how this random stuff works, because they don't even disclose what is the microcode doing, what is the firmware doing, why does it even not work, why is it even 4 months later, or in case of the bulldozer 4 years later. It's hilarious. Comments in the audience, the Graver says AMD following bugs, something Spectre, yeah. But not some others, only causing, but Intel has more and more grave ones. Well, you can extract microcode updates from BIOSes and even, well, you can extract microcode updates from BIOSes and even update them. What exactly do you mean with that? The question is, of course, if you have a Microsoft, as I said, the question is, does a Linux microcode update even fix this, or is it firmware BIOS initialization and it's not even the microcode? And again, recurring shout out, we need to demand more precise details. We cannot write secure stuff and each time we get a surprise like, yeah, but surprise, surprise, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, but it's the BIOS fault and it's update, put new microcode in the BIOS. So yeah, I understand that, but again, certainly it's not there in this BIOS, and the question is, maybe it's not even BIOS, but initialization, who knows, and recurring shout out that we need to know these details and demand answers. Speaking about answers, machine learning alone does not find bugs, and I wanted to, unfortunately, German news, because I didn't find the primary source. Maybe the author was sitting there in the Linux conference. I actually Googled, I didn't find the paper, but whatever, maybe later. So this was Sasha Levin on some Linux conference stuff here in Europe, somewhere in Spain or something. And so also this is I said in some other news that also looking on reverted Linux kernel stuff like reverts here, buffer, over, under, on, end, saying that that in my opinion there are too many random changes in the stable updates. In my opinion, there should only like really, well, probably the whole Linux kernel should be developed differently and microkernel, but maybe there's also too much random garbage. And I speculated some half a year ago that I think I heard that they use artificial intelligence, and that is exactly what they're doing here. So mostly I included this news for really shouting out that they indeed use machine learning, which is hilarious. So you see the Linux kernel, one address space, one spaghetti stuff of all the drivers off by one and plugging in each and left and right and overwriting each other stuff sometimes. And with this, the changes, so many random, I also recurrently call out like removing RP arguments, renaming stuff just for the fun of cleaning something up, removing stuff, renaming stuff, and then breaking all the compatibility and even merging this in the stable series. We have seen this here over and over again. And there are so many random changes in Linux kernel that they indeed use machine learning, which I find totally hilarious, to classify which kind of changes to import to the stable series. It's hilarious. And apparently he now said that he tried to train machine learning to find bugs, but with a overwhelming amount of code changes, but yeah, it didn't work very well. And also apparently quick patches just before the deadline often include more bugs. Yeah, like no surprise, Sherlock, but yeah. Here's also the original news, I think, at least. Wait a second, what is it now? Linux. Anyway, yeah, that is that news. What was that here? Here's, by the way, here's a link to this. Probably this was the open source summit where he said this, or was it not? I don't know. Or did I click on something? I lost the overview. Anyway, you get the idea. A recent study estimates that 50% of websites using WebAssembly applied for malicious purposes. So yeah, what is the latest and greatest complex web technology used for in 2019? Of course, for malicious purposes. Recurring shout out, we need to do like significantly a magnitude better on security, not only in the kernel, but also in the libraries, in the frameworks, in the browser, in websites, basically in everyone, in my humble opinion, after 2 decades in IT. It is sorry, but that is my conclusion after 20 years professionally doing this. A study published in June 2019 reveals that the Alexa top 1 million websites, 1 out of 600 sites executes WebAssembly code. The study, moreover, finds that over 50% of them using WebAssembly applied for malicious deed, such as cryptocurrency mining and malware code obfuscation. And yeah. That is slightly sad, because I was actually thinking to maybe we could reuse some WebAssembly for some operating system level command line just-in-time compilation. So much to, yeah. But anyway, if you were thinking with all the also recurring shout out previous news, USB stuff, Bluetooth stuff, all the native file system API and whatnot, all the fancy stuff of modern web browsers, which nowadays are already larger than the whole operating system, and for all the stuff where we're thinking, like, can that be a good idea? So yeah, 50% of the time, maybe not. Yeah, I mean, but WebAssembly, as the Graver says, by the way, a random bug, how made it through the quality assurance? That is also what I, in the original video 6 months or so ago, said. Also, I said back in the day, how could this made it through QA? The Graver agrees. And also WebAssembly, who thought that it's a great idea. Actually, I would say the idea as it is not too bad. So this is of course not x86 assembly. This is like pre-compiled bytecode like Java or Lua or any other of these purposes. Actually, probably not too bad of an idea for performance reasons. Then JavaScript does not need to be just in-time compiled, and you can already pre-compile like JavaScript or whatever for multimedia and whatever. The only thing, so generally the idea, I would actually say the idea not too bad, but, and I would, for reusing other people's code, people always tell me I rewrite too much code and reinvent the wheel. Actually, this is one of the things that I potentially would maybe reuse, but then only for the purpose of maybe even operating system level for command line tools, like compiling it once to WebAssembly and run like bash and GNU-org and all the fun stuff on MIPS, ARM, x86 PowerPC to only compile once and execute this fun stuff everywhere. But one huge warning, of course, is that you can use this for obfuscation, right? JavaScript, at least you could debug, although nowadays JavaScript also often being obfuscated with some totally unclever stuff like just renaming the variables, like you develop JavaScript and then you throw it through an obfuscation stuff like renaming all the variables from my cool variable to just I or I1, of course making the whole JavaScript stuff bloody unreadable and certainly a total pain in the ass to work with if you are debugging a web browser or a website and all the crappy. We've seen this also other channel, previous videos, we even debugged YouTube live streaming not working, which was a date related stuff, like when the date is more than 60 seconds off, it's hilarious. And then good luck debugging obfuscated JavaScript or WebAssembly. But they say the road to hell is paved with good ideas, says the Graver. Yeah, probably can agree to that and certainly makes sense, unfortunately. Speaking about stuff, Adobe gets US license to operate in Venezuela despite sanctions. There you see the double standard of the USA exposing sanctions for the rest of the world. Also, by the way, why? It's of course hilarious, right? Just often the USA had, for the last 70 years, maybe not the best track record in international politics, and then exposing their sanctions on the rest of the world, and then not even sticking to them themselves, right? So as soon as it gets difficult for a US company, by the way, can we also get an exemption? Where is the limit? Why do some rich companies now get an exception that may be donated to the right people? It's hilarious. Allegedly, I heard. So, software developer Adobe said on Monday it has received a US license. There you see, by the way, license, the snake oil of the governments, allowing it to keep providing its digital products like Photoshop and InDesign in Venezuela, which was due to shut off because of Washington's sanctions on the country. Venezuelans said they were resorting to piracy after San Jose's California-based Adobe said it's planned to hold access to its products to comply with sanctions. After discussion, also, yeah, cloud software, right? It's just, if you previously purchased InDesign or Photoshop or GIMP or Pixelmator or ExactScan or OCR Kit, don't delay, try our amazing paperless office today, which, by the way, our software is not cloud-based. So if it's once activated, it runs basically forever unless you change your Mac or PC or something. But there you see the dangers of cloud and subscription stuff, some US sanctions and off your connection to your cloud licensed software goes, and who thought this is a good idea? And it could also affect European countries, right? If someone does not comply to those sanctions, maybe even some, like, let's say Airbus or whoever delivers their something, and then they get hit with the same sanctions for not complying to the US sanctions. So then big company loses access to this. It's hilarious. Users can also, yeah, there you see, I mostly wanted to call out double standards, how well those sanctions work and what bloody stuff it is of like the US government with their international politics that for the last year certainly have been total disaster, allegedly, in my opinion anyway. And as soon as it gets a little bit difficult, a teeny little bit difficult for an US company, then to hell with the sanctions. In other news, speaking about teeny little difficult and stuff that doesn't quite work, iOS 13.2 now available with Deep Fusion, new emoji, Siri privacy settings and more. Also here, 2019, we get now so many iOS peak bug stuff not finished as promised. peak-bug stuff broken, and we get now a weekly iOS security update and weekly iOS major update or something. And here also greatest breaking news, a new emoji. And also the Siri privacy setting, of course, are the previous, also in our previous months disclosed here that normal workers were listening in there without users' consent. Thanks to Graver for the emojis. Well done. Also, Apple has released iOS 12.4.3 today. Wait a second, 12. Important security updates for older devices and similar fun stuff. Also, yeah, diffusion, whatever emoji, AirPod support, something. Also, yeah, you need a bloody OS update for a new Bluetooth device. It's hilarious. And similar fun stuff, nothing newsworthy. For sure, it's gigabyte in size, and instead, anyway. But in similar news, Apple released the HomePod, this bloody cloud speaker crap that probably also nobody here wants. And I mean, who thought that was a good idea, right? And so Apple released a HomePod-Software, and recurring shout out here, I'm apparently not the only one who discovers that this stuff. So am I the only one that says #peakbugs, which probably I encourage you to use on a large scale? We need to spread awareness. So how buggy is this stuff? Am I hallucinating? I'm making this, am I pulling this stuff of macOS peakbugs out of my ass? No. So this HomePod update was so broken, they immediately pulled it. Like also Apple quality assurance in 2019, they release updates and instantly pull them because they're too broken, because peakbugs. And apparently, so with this bloody update, so this update is so broken and apparently had bugs that if you would, with this update installed, reset your HomePod, it would be a brick and not work anymore and brick itself for. Yeah, so reset, you look, everything sounds good, but if you reset this, then you brick this. So yeah, 2019, Apple's amazing peak bugs and quality assurance and engineering at its best. Speaking about iPod and not best, someone wrote, so am I the only one who's calling this out? No. Here's some iPadOS discoverability trouble. Apple keeps saying that the iPad is the best incarnation of the vision of the future of personal computing. Obviously not, so I'm only reading this stuff out. This is not my opinion, and it's, in my opinion, totally limited, right? You switch from personal computing where you could do everything to a totally locked down device where you can't even bring your own firmware, let alone side loading your own software if you ever wanted to, especially if the support runs out in 3 or 4 years. And a complete muscular alternative to conventional personal computing, but an important feature is missing discoverability. The Word in Computer Science says, Alan K, with apologies for possible of misremembering the metaphor, open CSAM well-designed product should tell you what it does and how it works. With a great product, the inventor is there with you, guiding you through the something. Original Macintosh is a good example of a great product. The mouse pointing device took seconds to understand and just a few more to grow buttons and wheel. Argue perhaps correctly that they could do more with the command line, but the Mac's graphical user interface, pulling down and so on movable windows, gave the rest of us the power you never know. And 27 years later, Steve Jobs introduced the first successful tablet computer, ignoring the naysayers, yada yada yada. The most natural explanation for the decline of iPad failed, also yeah, decline of iPad sales, right? Initial expectation that it will be a general purpose device that could replace a Mac and PC, perhaps. This expectation was naive, but Apple's position didn't help. Tim Cook insisted that the iPad represented the clearest expression of Apple's vision of the future of personal computing. Interestingly, when Jobs introduced the iPad, he honestly and discreetly, with his usual vision, expressed ambivalence about the device. Has the first find its place, the iPad has to find its place between iPhone and Mac, and yada yada yada, without getting into the embarrassing details about the Where is it even? Features. Where is this even? Such a long article. Where was the point of it? Yeah, so the thing is that actually, so similar to peak bugs and usability design issues. So I think his point is that it's not self-conscious about the mental and motor skills in compared notes with a learned friend, a persistent fellow who forced himself to learn touch typing by erasing the letters of his keyboard. He too finds iPadOS discoverability to be severely lacking. There's a lot of new and possible helpful features, unlike 1984 Mac. Not enough is in the way of the hints that menu bars and pull-down menus provide. It all feels unfinished. Along also, yeah, peak bugs, so other prominent feature here on monday.com agree. It feels unfinished, a long list of potentially winning features, but are out of the reach for the mere mortals. And that's also, I have this also with friends and family. A lot of people often when they, I don't even use an iPad and iPhone much, but I often, as an IT savvy people still and working with this somewhat on a daily basis, I often find friends and family, like I see them struggling and often tell them, yeah, friends and family, fathers, my wife and such, by the way, do you know this trick and that trick? And there was, wow, you can do this. Yeah, wow, you can do this, but nobody knows, because most people that I've seen, regular people on the streets, customers, friends and family, often they use an iPhone and iPad only like 5% to their power of what the UI provides, because most people don't get into the stuff is so hidden, you don't even know this swipe and this gesture and this function. But anyway, probably reading this article too long. Saying about, speaking about which, and yes, you realize today I need to rush really through because so much happens this week and some days no IT news. And here, oh hey, look, Apple summer intern project was released in iOS 13.3. History is back in the music apps. Yay! 2019 iOS flagship products are developed by summer interns. I rest my case. And peak bugs. When you were wondering why is iOS sucking so much, or macOS and something, then yeah, in 2019 the richest companies on earth cheap down by having summer interns write their products. It is said, that is why I obviously need to shout it here. Thanks to the whole team for a wild second summer. Yeah, congratulations. I rest my case, no further questions. Speaking about Apple, someone else is writing some stuff. So someone is writing some app and had quite some discoveries. You probably want to read more of this blog posts. But Apple, your developer documentation is missing. If you want developers to love your platform, then you need to take this seriously. If it isn't documented, it isn't done. Some folks rightly pointed out that my use of garbage suggests that the platform of the quality of the system documentation. He revised the post, capture the problem. Over the past months, he trying to get the speed on the Apple developer ecosystem as part of working on his rewrite project. This means he has been learning Swift. Again, Swift UI and barely the iOS and macOS APIs. It has been terrible. So yeah, am I hallucinating? Am I pulling this broken peak bugs and not amazing? Also not thread server, right? Previous video, our app intentionally breaking exact scan there. Don't delay, try paperless office scanning today. On the main channel, on the other channel, Apple intentionally breaking not thread safe stuff. Also 2019, this amazing or not amazing peak bug UI and framework stuff not thread safe. It's hilarious. We have even on an iPhone and iPad multi-core, multi-threaded CPUs, and stuff is not even thread safe, but probably more of this to come on all our. So yeah, to some context, here spent the last 5 years working very actively in the JavaScript front end and so on, and yada yada. It was working something, whatever could, whatever versed. So he often threw up his hands in quiet despair at the utter lack of explanation, or occasionally the insane explanations of core concepts he thought that would have been absolute worst massive tech company, in that case Google, provided public APIs could possibly do, but he was wrong. The current state of Apple software documentation is the worst he has ever seen in any framework anywhere, period. Peak bugs, I rest my case. Mostly shouting this out to give you a broader overview here that I'm not the only one who, and when you thinking this crazy angry German with his bloody unsuccessful YouTube channel of just talking random garbage, the whole day, it's like, yeah, some other people chime in there also. Thank you, Chris Kreischer also. Sorry for pronouncing this probably wrong. Just some added data points for peak bugs, for missing documentation, for stuff not amazing in the Apple ecosystem, you name it. Speaking about set state of ecosystem, the set state of the saga of Purism and Librem 5 part 1. So this is, yeah, allegedly, according to these people, maybe if you have more insight, leave me know. Today he is going to tell a sad tale of device called Librem 5 and the company behind Purism. So maybe stuff not people often ask here, but what do I think? I don't know. I stopped spending random stuff on better have fun with old vintage Octane and whatever. Don't need to spend money on anything, well, except PCI, shoehorns and XIO anyway. So as of right now, this story does not have to have an happy ending. He's writing on the series of articles protest against the behavior of Purism, a company which claims that transparency and openness are their core values. If they won't tell the world the truth about Librem 5, he is willing to at least give it a go. First thing, last month he promised a blog about the low-powered computing progress in trying to adopt his small server, something, whatever. Probably don't know about Purism is essentially a technology company that produces false-compliant hardware, powered false-compliant software, and plenty, well, it's something. He started early September. Yes, introduction here is asking what is the problem. Well, not a single backer has received an email asking what kind of modem or power adapter they want with their Librem 5, nor has any backer received a shipping notice or an actual phone now, while the Purism forum and can't claim a monopoly of people who have backed the project. At some point over the course of a month, it expects that somebody outside of Purism proudly announce having received a phone, or publish a review or create a video about it, while I can't tell, and so on. Yeah, you probably want to read this. So yeah, there's only like one person. Anyway, so maybe stuff allegedly not the most amazing, just wanted to share this here. So not only Apple, but also some other companies. But however, doing hardware and open source is certainly, software is not the most easy. We certainly know that. So always have a benefit of a doubt. But I also have been there with the Neo. I actually got a Neo 1974, whatever that was. Unfortunately, one of the few things that was stolen from me, which is of course totally sad, because the Neo 1974 something was anyway for me not even the most usable phone, but I still wanted it to T2 ARM tinkering and Texas Instruments Calypso, also 3G modem firmware hacking chip. But yeah, so someone stole it from a storage facility and where I had it. Thanks God, thankfully they have not stolen the SJ Octane, certainly it was too heavy. So they've only stolen the Neo 30. All the other old scanners certainly were too much garbage for them. So they've only stolen the one. Actually, also they've also stolen the one laptop per child. Previous video, if you want to see the one laptop per child disassembled. However, thanks to some totally amazing housekeeper there, they catched the thief, and I got the one laptop per child back from the police, but unfortunately not the Neo 1973. He must have snitched that in a previous run. Anyway, so even that experience was not the most amazing. This is why I refrain from such kind of product startups. But in other news, we have this FPGA stuff from Aston here, so at least that is more amazing. So be careful, long story short, be careful and skeptical with open hardware stuff. And certainly I'm pretty much, I'm not even blaming them too much, because certainly doing hardware is much harder than software, and especially with all the GNOME versus KDE and GTK versus Qt and all the stuff, and maybe not the most amazing state for mobile hardware. Speaking about more amazing stuff, asynchronous communication, the real reason remote workers are more productive. So that's a fun little article. He thinks that the remote work is the future, believes that asynchronous communication is even more important factor in team productivity, whether your team is remote or not. And maybe this is, I mostly probably want to work, maybe you want to read this and optimize your, because people also asked me here, what do I do to be productive? Well, except wasting my productivity with YouTube live streaming. But otherwise, I've not read it in full because didn't have enough time, but mostly wanted to share that. I would expect some stuff is not having all the office noise, like in a cubicle, like your friends and family, co-workers getting on your nerves the whole day, telephones ringing. So maybe asynchronous and working remotely at home or so could potentially have a higher concentration and benefit, and also like not even being disturbed like a co-worker running into your cubicle every 10 minutes begging you with some, can you fix me this bug, can you reroute me this hardware pick and place tool, FPGA routing, whatever, PCB layouting stuff. So maybe better communication, concentrating on a task for an hour or two and then getting back to asynchronous email. I personally like it much more. I really hate messages like instant messages and other phone calls. So certainly probably not read the article, but for that sort, I would certainly, with my experience here, agree with that sort of asynchronous communication. Also in microkernel and software design, probably amazing. Let's see, always be careful with Kickstarter and Indiegogo stuff, says the Graver. And in healthcare algorithm, also, yeah, the cloud and algorithmic feature, a healthcare algorithm offered less care to Black patients. Raise your hand if you are surprised, especially if this is a US company, apparently. Shows the risk of making decisions used on data that reflects inequality in American society. Totally important piece to read and learn lessons and take stuff away from. And care for some of the sickest Americans is decided part of an algorithm, which is of course totally disgusting, but that is certainly the future, right? This is the disgusting feature that we are heading, that is a disgusting future we are heading into, and why I feel the need to recurrently shout this out and disclose it here on this meanwhile IT news channel. New research shows that software-guided care for tens of millions of people systematically privileges white patients over Black patients, which certainly I find disgusting and can't approve of. And certainly because this is also IT and software and stuff for you to learn a lesson. And I would actually not be surprised with what I've read allegedly in the news and see in the news and learn from US friends and family. I would not even be surprised if this is systematically designed so that this is not even a data glitch, that could even be done intentionally. Would not surprise me, and why we need open data, open algorithms and recurring shout, not only on radio frequency controlled firmware stuff as our recurring shout out, but also algorithms on self-driving cars, on medicine decisions like this one. And yeah, certainly something definitely to read and take something for the future. In similar news, government officials around the world target for hacking through WhatsApp sources. Senior government officials in multiple US-led allied countries were targeted earlier this year with hacking software that uses Facebook's WhatsApp to take over phones. So the recurring theme of government mandated backdoors, or in beginning of this news, Russian's government. You don't need to look for Russia, China, North Korea. You just need to look to the USA, the UK, unfortunately also France, Spain, Germany, you name it, and all the other surrounding states that copy other similar suppressing ideas, and especially the USA, certainly of all places. And also why we can't trust government backdoors, right? Not only we can't trust the government, probably for the most part, and second of all, even if we can trust the government, which allegedly not so often, even then the hackers can find them and use them anyway, so never trust any backdoor, not recommended. Sources familiar with WhatsApp's internal investigation into a breach said a significant portion of the known victims are high-profile government and military officials spread across at least 20 countries of 5 continents. Many of the nationals are US allies, they said. The hacking of a wider, also here, Snowden paper, which, by the way, I had 1 second. A short book recommendation while we are at this topic. Certainly we had the other live stream, we had a book recommendation, Snowden's Stuff I've not read. This just arrived here. I had to, unfortunately, also, yeah, I wanted to buy it at a local bookstore. Actually, the Snowden book I brought in a local bookstore in France. I wanted to buy this in a local bookstore in Berlin, but they didn't have this in stock, so I really had to order it. But so probably, yeah, Blowout, Rachel Maddow, the lively but serious book is a reminder that before Maddow became the face of nighttime television, she was scholar earned a doctorate in politics at Oxford. And yeah, also there's a summary of this big oil and gas versus democracy. Winner takes it all. Probably, at least I can give you an update, but if you want, after Snowden's permanent record and recurring, this just reminded me of, yeah, permanent record, Snowden paper, not that we would be surprised after this, and filed a lawsuit against Israeli-backed tool developer. The Facebook-owned software giant alleges the NSO group built and sold hacking platform that exploits a flaw in WhatsApp. Also, yeah, just write secure code, right? The problem is also nowadays, everything Windows or Linux, both mostly monolithic, especially Linux, yeah, it starts with a kernel, it continues over the frameworks, and then the modern Silicon Valley stuff or other startup stuff, just clobbering all the frameworks together, pick one here, pick one there, some security vulnerabilities in this parsing library, in this network library. Nobody understands anything anymore. And the end result is a 20, 30, 50 megabyte mobile application that has 20 frameworks and similar amount of 20, 50, 100 security vulnerabilities, because certainly they just pull in the dependencies and nobody checks. It's also certainly not only write secure code, probably not with manually filling C code, like bit string manipulating, manual open coded whatever stuff, but also keep stuff stupid simple. The simpler, the stupider and the simpler it is, the less frameworks, external frameworks, and the more secure it also is. Of course, it's not a guarantee. You still need to write. You can also write simple insecure code, but the less code, the more simple, the less external frameworks, the more you review it. Also, yes, security review and best practices, but certainly something that is, if you follow this IT news as sad as it is, I can only really shake my head anymore. This is why I turn to YouTube to spread the word, because it is really hilarious, a sad state in IT in 2019. In similar news, ACLU sues FBI DOJ over face recognition technology, criticizes unprecedented surveillance and secrecy, and yeah, in similar accordance to Russia monitoring or building their own internet, and the USA doing everything they can for decades already to spy on each and everyone. And also, yeah, a recurring reminder, facial recognition all over the place, hotels, subway stations, airports. Do we want to live in such a society? Especially here we in Germany, at least in East Germany, they had quite some experience there with the total surveillance state. And the question is what for, I mean, with terrorism, everything in the name of terrorism, when in reality less people die through terrorism than get struck by a thunder or hit by a car walking over the street. So we limit all our freedom and society in such a way, in a total surveillance way, for, of course, every victim is one victim too many, but certainly in the USA, school shootings, more people die through guns in schools in the USA than through terrorism. And yet we need to, why can they not finally forbid their freaking guns for everyone when more people die due to that, even in schools, than due to terrorism, which mostly allegedly is anyway raised by US stuff there, counter-surveillance, whatever stuff there. You know the stuff. So yeah, it's sad, it's hilarious. So we basically give up all our freedom. Everything is monitored, surveilled for basically, well, nothing, right? At least, but leave in the comments, probably that triggers some people, but that's what we are here for. In more news, that is MIT Technology Review, sea level rise could flood hundreds of millions more than expected. Recurring theme here, recurring reminder on Friday for Future. Princeton researchers found that far more people are living closer to the ocean than previously believed. By the end of the century, rising ocean will almost certainly flood the lands. where tens of millions of people living accelerate climate change warmings and water, the water and melts ice sheets, but precise estimates, vulnerability, and so on. Read the whole story. Maybe the bigger, higher estimate prove correct, it will dramatically increase the damages and casualties from sea level rise. Yeah, probably Friday for Future, you got the idea. Probably we should start acting on that. Probably not switch our Octane on so often in any way. Also, fun fact, maybe, although the problem is of course big politics and big companies doing nothing, well, not only too little but nothing, but leave me in the comments below what you think. I challenge everyone to do maybe more. Also, fun fact, maybe gamify that I disclosed in previous videos, not only with our clean diesel. Yes, maybe we soon get an electric car, but I'm totally hypermiling with 100 kilometers per hour behind trucks. No problem with it. Maybe gamify your life. Make it a personal challenge to save 20%. Just drive slower. Costs you nothing. I don't even ask you to buy something or whatsoever. Just drive slower. Save 20% or more of your gasoline. Especially if you drive like a maniac, then save even more than 20%. But save 20% easily. Hypermile a little bit. Buy less garbage. Avoid plastic, sort more stuff, recycle more stuff. So not even asking you to spend all your 10,000s of euros for a fancy Tesla electric car, which might not even save the environment, but just produce less, save more, and also, yeah, even showering, just shower 20% shorter. You're probably still clean enough. And just some ideas to personally do a little bit without spending a single cent. And otherwise, if you have other amazing ideas, like avoiding plastic bottles, and if you take a coffee to go, bring already your cup or something of that sort. And yeah, if you have other suggestions, but certainly with all those studies, I can only recurrently remind you that stuff is not looking the most amazing if you follow and listen to the the science. Was this, by the way, this actually might have been the last news, which probably certainly was long enough today, and I probably rushed through quite a bit because this were so many. Where's even my total time of, where is drop frame 0 live? Ah, here, 1 hour. So yeah, totally rushed through this because I need to go home. Hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed this, hope this gives something of value. I hope it is possible to watch this, like not watch but listen as a podcast. If you have any suggestions how to do this better, let me know. Ideas from myself, I think many of those points, not only from Friday for Future and saving the environment. By the way, it's not even saving the planet, right? Fun fact, when those climate change deniers are like, it's not saving the planet. Actually, fun fact, the planet will still be there even if we make it a living hell and a desert covering the whole Earth like on Mars. The planet, it's not saving the planet, it's actually saving humankind, and that's probably something that, some slogans that we probably should use more, because the planet doesn't even care too much if we make it a huge desert. Then we have a second Mars here in this star system, in the universe, but it's actually not saving the planet, but saving humankind. And with that, probably time to say goodbye. Thanks for watching, hope you learned something. And if you have any ideas how to make it better, either with only reading the news and no commentary, or making this more often, I don't know, leave me in the comments below what you think. And I hope to see you soon for all the next news and tinkering, MIPS, ARM, vintage, retro, modern, not modern, and Intel AMD also 3950X SKU as soon as it's there. Hope to see you soon for all this fun stuff to come.